Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Main Character Syndrome. I'm your host Cheesymanfredo, aka Alfredo Morales, and with me here as always is my co-host Julian. Say hello, Julian.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the number one parasocial podcast.
Right, number one parasocial podcast.
Nobody believes it, but it's true.
It's true. Believe us and believe me, because no guests today, because today's a special episode. For those who listen to previous episodes, they know this episode was a long time coming. But I'd like to welcome you all to the Isaac Young episode, where I finally get to fully talk about the guy after doing all these week of research on him, combing through his Substack, reading all of his articles, and a handful of his short stories and other things he's written. And I'm finally here to deliver all that. What do you think of that, Julian?
I'm interested. I hope for people tuning in for the first time are aware that this isn't like a lolcow situation. It's not a call-out situation. Like, you have a genuine interest in this guy.
Oh yeah, I don't think this guy's a lolcow. I do find him like interesting, and I think I mean, you'll see. This is gonna be a little bit more different than we're not calling out a right winger. This isn't like we're bashing a right winger style episode or anything. You know, this is just me kind of like seeing I guess Isaac as a person. But before I go into that, I have a message, because Isaac Young might listen to this. You know, that's a possibility, right? So I got a message for him, right? And I want to be honest with him. I am a leftist, right? And before you click off, Isaac, I don't care that you're a right winger, because I think you're a talented writer. There are points in your articles I find interesting and agreeable, but the rest I don't. And I'm going to discuss all of that on this podcast. And if you're not interested in hearing that, I understand. But just letting you know, I will end this podcast by talking about your story, Giga Heroes, which I'm a fan of. And if you want to skip straight to that part, here's the time code. 2 hours, 1 minute, 20 seconds. I'm just going to add it in post, you know. So, you know, just a heads up, just a big old heads up for Isaac, right? That was who that message was for. No one else. Got that? All right, perfect. Good. I'm glad we could agree on that, Julian.
I hope there's like a person out there, when you said got it, they like nodded their head. Like, I imagine the people who write those Blue's Clues episodes are like, oh man, imagine those kids. They're like, yeah.
There's someone in there fucking on their way to work nodding their head listening to the podcast, and their name is Isaac, right? Anyway, okay, but who the hell is Isaac Young, you might be asking? Well, according to his Twitter bio, he is a sci-fi and fantasy author, Catholic, professor of CADAF studies at Miskatonic University, collected works and short stories. And then there's a link to his Substack, right? And I went through it, you know, for the past couple of weeks, and I painted my own picture on who I think Isaac Young is, right? Because I think a better description would be he's a right-wing indie writer and self-proclaimed Zoomer, right? And you might be wondering, like, why talk about this guy? Well, he caught my attention, like, I think it was like a couple months ago. He's the guy who did that one, like, fuck-ass, like, Starship Trooper thread.
Yeah.
That made him, like, Twitter main character, right? He said that Starship Troopers doesn't work as a parody, right?
And it was a whole article. Like, I rarely see people use threads correctly, or like the idea of a Twitter thread.
Well, a lot of his articles on his Substack are just kind of like longer versions of that Twitter thread, you know, right? So if you thought his points were particular or interesting at all, then like I would recommend his articles. That being said, we did fully talk about that Starship Trooper thread like 8 episodes ago. It's the video with like the bug on the thumbnail. So if you want to hear our full take on that, we'll just click that episode, right? I mean, it's not fucking homework for this episode. But anyway, I did learn a couple things though, that he actually likes Starship Troopers. Like, it's in his top 5 favorite movies of all time. Do you want to hear his other top 5?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so his top 5 are The Thing, Fear, Sphere, I mean, Starship Troopers, The Mummy, and Pirates of the Caribbean. That's like five. That's the five favorite movies of all time for him, right? And I
That's a
want you to
pretty
keep
good
in.
mix. I was
Yeah,
also a big Thing and Pirates of the Caribbean teenager.
yeah. I don't think he picks bad movies. I think they're all like bangers. I haven't seen Sphere, but I heard it's good. You know,
Yeah.
so add that one to the list to watch later. And I want you also to keep um I want you to keep in mind all those movies because once we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of how he thinks about this stuff, I think those being his favorites are kind of interesting, right? So yeah, so after going for your Starship Trooper Fred, I looked into the Substack. And like I said earlier, I look for his articles, look for his stories, right? And he mostly writes articles about like pop culture, right? But he uses pop culture more as kind of like a stepping stone to really talk about like the articles usually will start about the topic he picks in pop culture, and then it will become him as a right wing like indie artist giving advice to other like right wing artists on how to win the culture war against the woke left, right? He's a big culture war guy, you know. You
Mm.
heard of the culture war, Julian? You're aware of the culture war?
I know of it. I have very little grasp of like what's actually at stake. Like, if anything, I'm having my own culture war with the concept of culture in general.
It's the heart of America is at stake here, Julian. That's
Okay.
the real issues are the issues of the culture war, Julian. And I think and I think when we go through his articles, you're gonna see what I mean by that, right? But also, I like to say that this podcast has an official stance on the culture war, right? Like memes aside, I do have an official stance on the culture war, and my stance, as well as this podcast stance, is who fucking cares, right? You know,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
know
like the
that,
liberal Al Bundy.
yeah, like who gives a fuck? Actually, it's funny you say that because I know if Isaac heard me said that I don't give a fuck about the culture war, his response would be, of course, this liberal doesn't care about the culture war. His side is winning, right?
Oh, I don't know
And
about that.
well, yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this, Julian, but according to Isaac Young, and this isn't, as I learned, this is not an unpopular take. The right are losing the culture war, right? And it's very popular like thing to say, especially with like right wing grifters, right?
Yeah.
And that's where Isaac sounds very similar to a grifter, but he's not, right? Because when he says that the right is like losing the culture war, he like really means it,
He
he
feels it in his
really
bones.
believes it. Yeah, exactly. And I think what I like is that reading for his articles, I could see him as a person before I see him as like the avatar of his ideologue, right?
Right.
Like like not to say that comes second, but like him as a human comes first, you know?
Yeah.
And and that's kind of like how most of Isaac's articles kind of break down to. Like they he has this kind of insight that comes from him as like a person, right? And then like the right wing ideology comes in, and a lot of like right wing grifters like do that, like they'll butter you up, and then like the real shit they believe in comes through, you know.
Yeah.
But like I said, Isaac is not like a grifter. I think he's more self reflective. Like the things he say, like he to be honest, I don't think he's trying to appeal to an audience. Like this is like his honest opinion on things,
Mm.
because he's pretty like consistent. Well, he's pretty consistent in the things he likes. He has like the typical right wing like hypocrisies, and I'll go through that. I'll go through all of that. Right, we'll go through all of that right now, actually, because he's been writing articles on Substack since like 2022, right? And I said before he's like a self-proclaimed Zoomer. I did learn that he's like 23, right? So if
My
he was
mortal enemy,
writing,
23-year-olds.
right, exactly. I'm not
He's lucky
super
you like him.
interested. Yeah, exactly. He is. I'm not super interested in the opinions of 23-year-olds, but I think this 23-year-old is saying something interesting. Not the right wing shit. He's wrong about that, but everything else he has to say, it's he might be onto something, you know. But the first article he ever wrote, and I think this article is very like indicative of like the rest of the articles. Like he kind of like, I don't know if I'm pretty sure he didn't plan this out, right? But this first one really kind of like sets the stage for all the other future articles to come, you know.
Right.
And the title of his first article is "Why the Right Wing Needs to Abandon the Term Mary Sue," right? And he uploaded this one on October 25th, 2022, right?
Nice.
You familiar with Mary Sue's, Julian?
Yeah, I love Mary Sue's.
Yeah, we're pro Mary Sue on this
I love opening up a
podcast.
book and it's like, wow, she can do anything.
She could do anything. She could do anything to me. Is that what you mean, Julian? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly that.
All right.
I
Well,
see a
let
character large and in charge, and I'm like, she should peg me.
Okay. Well, enough about that, you nasty. But so I think what makes this article great is because I already kind of like the title, why the right wing needs to abandon the term Mary Sue. It's very interesting because I was like, I wonder what he means by this, right? And reading into it, he has like some legitimate insight, you know, and like, I got this first quote right here of something insightful he says, and it's, "This seems to be a problem on the right. People are decent enough at identifying the symptoms of a problem, but they struggle naming the root cause," right? And he's
Right.
referring to like, you know, Mary Sue as a concept. In his other quote, he says, "The difference between a Mary Sue and a good character is ironically enough not found in the character. It's in how all the elements of the narrative work together to make the story. You can't define a Mary Sue by traits because that's not the problem. The problem is the story being told," right? And I think that's really fucking like, you know, like clever of a thing to say. You know, he
Yeah.
doesn't like he doesn't dismiss the concept of the Mary Sue, but he like kind of the way he's breaking it down, it's like, oh, so a Mary Sue doesn't really like exist. You know, the Mary Sue is like a symptom of a bad story. You
Which
know,
is
and I think
very correct. Like, there's a reason people don't like those new Star Wars movies because they kind of have that. But also, you look insane if you say, "Oh, I'll raise a Mary Sue."
well,
Like, just
I think
say
it
it's a bad story.
yeah, the thing is because you know there's so many and he mentions this in the articles, like, you know, people could just go through the list of what makes a Mary Sue, and you could point to a bajillion characters that do that people like, because you know it doesn't really fucking matter if she could do everything, and it's near impossible. There are good stories where people just do that, you know.
Right.
So that being said, we also here later get his kind of like the first mention of the left. You know, he talks about the left a lot as like as a proud warrior of the culture war. He's always talking about his enemies, and that is that is the left. And we're gonna see him mention the left a couple more times in these other. And we'll paint a fuller picture. But what I could tell you is that like he doesn't see the left as like people. You know, he's not like people like you and me. You know, they're to him the left are more like demons. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. Because I there was this one tweet he was talking about that one new anime with the elf, not Dungeon Meshi, the other one that people talk about with the elf
Oh,
with the white
Free
hair.
Ren.
Yeah, Free Ren. Yeah. So in that one there's like demons in that, and they do something. They imitate people, and he was saying that like, oh, that perfectly encapsulates the left. You know, like he has a tweet where he says that, where like, yeah, demons like function like this, and like I don't know, it kind of makes sense that he would say that because he is a Catholic, and as I learned later on, like studying him, he does believe in like magic and shit.
Oh.
Like he believes that a person can be like telepathic, like that's possible, you know, and he believes in like typical kind of like right wing superstition type stuff, like symbols and warnings, you know, right? And it kind of makes sense because as we like uh dwell deeper into this guy. He has kind of like I mentioned this before on previous episodes, but he has like a catchphrase, which I learned is not really something he came up with. It's something he got from like, I'm not exactly sure where he got it. But the phrase is let me control F here. Yeah, but his phrase he goes back to, he mentions this like a handful of times in the article, is the good, the true, and the beautiful, right?
Mm,
And
very
what do
poignant.
you yeah, exactly. Very catchy too. And this isn't like a phrase that he came up with, like I said before. This is actually something that originates from Plato, apparently, right?
Oh.
And Christians, once they learned about this phrase, they strongly felt that like, oh, obviously scripture like invokes this phrase, you know, this is obviously describing scripture. So they really like fuck with this phrase that I think is more associated with like Christians than like I think Plato at this point. Or maybe it isn't, I don't know. But that's from when I looked it up, it was mostly like a bunch of like Christian articles and videos popped up when I looked up the phrase, right? So that's like the vibe that I'm getting. It's very popular with them. And actually, he does mention this catchphrase in this first article. So I'll read what he has to say about it. Uh, Condemn the story itself as empty. This is why I say knowing the author is important. A good story relies on meaning. It relies on the belief of the writer and it's meant to convey the good, the true, and the beautiful. Sometimes that's through tragedy, but it's still there. And while you can often see the meaning in the work itself, knowing the author will tell you what's intentional and what's not. What do you think about that, Julian?
It's
What
an
do you pull from that?
interesting way to look at it. I don't know if I fully agree though.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with it. And to be honest, I don't think he agrees with it. I know he wrote like he might have changed his mind, kind of like he still believes in the good, the true, and the beautiful, but this exact wording he might have changed his mind on because he did write this in 2022 because
That makes sense. That his
the whole
stance might
line,
change.
yeah, I can see that. Like the whole line where it's like, and while you can often see the meaning in the work itself, knowing the author will tell you what's intentional and what's not. You know, like I don't believe he believes in that line because one of his favorite movies is Starship Troopers, and he chooses to ignore what the director says about the movie because the director has explicitly said that Starship Troopers is a satire. You know, it's and like Isaac over here chooses not to believe that. He believes it's a poorly done like parody, you know, and lets him like, you know, obviously ignoring what the author has to say. Well, one of the creators has to say about like the work itself, you know. I really would love to like what I would really want Isaac to do is I want him to do an article where he just makes a list of movies that are like the movies that are like the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? Like those are the movies I really wanted. Like, what does he consider
Yeah.
are all those movies? You know, because
How many
as
Disney
like
Channel original movies evoke the good, the true, and the beautiful?
well, obviously the Luck of the Irish, right? Like you put the Luck of
Yeah,
the
that's a
Irish on
shoe
that
in.
list, right? Exactly. I think the more I read through his articles, because the phrase "the good, the true, and the beautiful" is a very vague phrase, you know. And so that's what makes me think he's like he is connecting that with his like, you know, religion, with his like spirituality. You know, he does bring up that like, you know, his talking about work that kind of like invokes God, you know, like and he does mention a God couple times actually, and I am fucking looking through that shit right now. But when he says stuff like true, I think he means like true as in like, you know, it's true to God, right? And when he says good, I think he's just talking about like the quality of something. So if it's a good movie, it's a good story that counts, right? And
Yeah.
beautiful is like I mean I guess if it looks good, right? He I remember in his Starship Troopers Fred, he thinks you can't like make fun of like beautiful people, like you can't make beautiful people really look like idiots or whatnot, you know.
Mm.
Um Totally ignoring that like having all those lead actors be beautiful is like done on purpose in order to like throw off your guard, you know, because people tend to like mostly want to listen to good looking people, you know, right? And that's kind of a part of the satire. That's like a part of the satire in Starship Troopers, right?
It's a very
Um,
common television joke. It never stops being funny.
yeah, true. And and I think another big thing about this is that the fact that it's vague means that you can kind of use it in whatever context you want. I can't see Isaac doing a list of like the movies that count as the good, the true, and the beautiful, because people are gonna scrutinize it, you know, right? In the same way that in the same way he has moved away from using Mary Sue as a talking point, because enough people like, and that's like the big thing he mentions here earlier in the article is that oh wow, I fucking scroll down. He mentions here that he says I quote, he says, "The left is nothing but a master of sophistry, and you're playing right into their hands. It'll become a game of wordplay of why some traits work for some characters and others don't, you know." And he's basically saying that like enough people on the left have scrutinized like the Mary Sue buzzword, that it's like, well, obviously Mary Sue doesn't fucking exist, right? It's just like a buzzword, you know. And but he doesn't frame this as like he has kind of arrived to a point, but it's more like the left is like this annoying thing, you know, that if you like saying Mary Sue, because it's at the same time it's like he realizes the term Mary Sue is like invalid, but like later in the article he talks about like Mary Sue like it's a real threat to media, you know, right?
Right.
So yeah, so what does that tell you? That tells you that like, you know, oh, a left-wing person didn't lead him to this belief. It's more like we should avoid using this word because the left is super annoying about it, you know. And
like it's a subpar thing to wrap around the concept of examining a work, so it should just be disregarded, and they should come up with stronger arguments to support what they think is correct, instead of just outwardly saying what they think is correct.
Right. So like I don't see like Isaac I think recently I've not, after this article I'd never see him like use the word Mary Sue, you know. So he's consistent with that, which you know paints me to believe he's like honest about it, you know. Right. I just wish he would take that like extra step to be like, then it just doesn't exist, right? And then like, because later on in other articles he does complain about diversity, you know, and in this like he complains about the whole Warhammer situation that happened recently, you know. And he
mess.
Yeah, and he complains about diversity in that, and I wish he would see that like the logic that he arrived to with like Mary, like he should extend that to like diversity, because like, you know, you could point to like works that have like people who aren't white that he probably likes, you know, or he probably doesn't fucking hate, you know, and he can see that the whole diversity shit doesn't really fucking matter, you know.
Yeah.
I think like this view of like it's a symptom of a problem that the story has, is like, you know, this view that he should be consistent with everything, and I do believe he thinks he's consistent with this on everything, right? I mean, the fact that he still complains about like diversity shows that he's not really, but I would want him to like keep like, you know, like keep going with it, you know, keep going with that logic, and you'll see that like the majority of the things right wingers are complaining about are just buzzwords, you know, right? But then again, he might say that me as a leftist, I'm trying to deceive him, you know. That might be one of the points.
Like you're using your demon wiles to fool him.
Yeah, I'm using my demon magic, right? Let me. Here's this quote about like lefties that I highlighted that he said. The left doesn't make good stories because they don't believe in anything. They think art is subjective self-expression meant to evoke a reaction, whatever that reaction may be. They have no concept of a higher good, so all that remains is power. That's why they desecrate old IPs.
No.
Oh my god. See, this is why I also like Isaac, because he's super fucking funny, you know. But like,
Yeah.
let's break that down for a little bit. Okay, Julian, do you not believe in anything?
I believe in things.
Yeah, I
It
believe
might
in things too.
appear that I don't believe in things because I'm dismissive of certain concepts, but it's more so just I believe in other things.
I think people could believe in things but also like not realize that they're being hypocritical about their beliefs. I think that happens way more
Oh yeah.
often, right? Because I'm simply saying like, oh, they don't believe in anything, you know? Like, oh, like I that's another popular thing I do hear, kind of like lefties say like right wingers don't believe in anything, and I'm like, oh, they believe in things, they just don't, like, they're just either A, ignoring their own hypocrisies, or B, like, you know, not realizing that's what they're doing, you know. And I guess that's me coming at it with more good faith, because like, I guess if they're hypocritical, they don't actually believe in anything. But I think like there's no way to really like avoid like hypocrisy. Like, I think there's a difference between like a scam artist. There's a difference between like a grifter and a person who like didn't like think of the implications of everything they believed in that hard enough, you know? Like, I think those are two different things. Like, I think the grifter doesn't believe in anything, you know?
Yeah.
Right. um I like this whole line of they think art is subjective. Self-expression meant to evoke a reaction. That's kind of funny, because there's the second article he writes is like a writing advice article that has like there's nothing like right wing in it at all. It's actually really good, like decent like writing advice. And the thing is that like it's crazy how like he doesn't, like, you know, invoke God in that article, because it's like are you not like expressing like yourself in the art that you make? Like, I mean, he's got to believe in that, you know, you are expressing the things you about you. Like, when you make a work and you do the good, the true, the beautiful, isn't that like self-expression, right? Like,
Right.
invoking a reaction. You like, later on he talks about like he wants to make like works should be inspiring, you know, like, isn't getting inspired a reaction, right? Aren't you reacting to the work by getting inspired, you know? Because it's like, what is he like, then what is he like kind of describing for his own work here, you know? Because I know he doesn't believe this. I've read his stories, and I know it's like, well, obviously you got more going on than like, I don't know, because this might be coming from like, because I know like right wingers love like a lefty, like we've done this a couple times where I think we say like things hyperbolically, you know,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Where
You
we're
heard
like
Joe say it.
exaggerating. Yeah, exactly, you know. But I think like when leftists do that on Twitter and they don't put the SRS or like JK at the end, you know, like a right winger could like screenshot and be like, "You see that? They do actually want to do this."
Oh yeah.
Right, you know. And like, and then when we laugh at them for like reacting so angrily, it's like, oh, they make work to react to. He does at points in other articles call himself like a reactionary. So I guess like they're reactionary to the right because he's a reactionary. The right are the reactionaries because the leftists are making them react, you know. I think that could be the logic. That could be the logic there, you know.
The Zoomer
Um
version of reactionary.
yeah, there's a little bit more there's a little bit more really fucking great ass quotes in this article where he's like, here's a quote. That's also why we see so many Mary Sues in our medium. These authors are creating political propaganda as a way of showing power and indulging in their fantasies of crushing their enemies. That's like funny because he really likes, like, I mean, that going back to like Starship Troopers, he really like likes that they shoot down the bugs, you know. Is that not the fantasy of crushing your enemies, you know, of like
Yeah.
gunning down fucking bugs, right? Once again, he was 21 when he wrote this article. He's currently 23, so maybe he's changed his mind. Maybe he's not, this is his first article, he might not be that proud about it, you know. um
Maybe he saw Steven Universe and thought, oh, maybe there is another way.
Yeah, oh man, I was gonna bring up Steven Universe. He doesn't talk about Steven Universe, but I did think Steven Universe would be something funny to bring up later. Later on in this breakdown. But anyway, let's go to his next article. The hard truth of writing, which he wrote in November 2nd, 2022. And I like to say this whole article, there's like really nothing right wing about it. It's a very just insightful article, just about giving like really good, decent writing advice, you know? And he says some things that like, oh, this is like shit that I would just say, you know, right? Which is, you know, kind of what makes me a little bit of a fan of Isaac. You know, we might not be so different, you and I. Right. Nice. But yeah, let me go through some stuff that I highlighted. Here's one of his advice. The first hard truth of writing is that it's work. Yeah, I believe that. I think a lot of people like, you know, like I get if you just do writing as a hobby, like you don't really care too much about it. But if it's something you want to see results out of, yeah, you gotta treat it like work, you know, right? And here's his next hard truth, and that leads to the next hard truth. You need to actually finish your work at some point. No, I believe that. Yeah, just go ahead. Whatever the fuck you do, just go ahead and finish it. Actually, I don't even know if I want to go like through every single like thing I highlighted about this article, because it's like just I think people get more out of it just by actually like reading it, you know. And we'll link these all at the bottom. You know, I'll finally do my job and I'll link shit like in the comments about what the fuck am I reading off. I'll just link his Substack. But yeah, this whole like article about writing is really it's really good, and he even goes into kind of like posting stuff like publicly, because here he has a line where it's like, when you put your work out in the public venue, you gather an audience. That's critical, because an audience is not built up by releasing your masterpiece one day and expecting everyone to gush over it. Yeah, that's true. You know, you should just be finishing your stuff, posting it out there, and, you know, go on to the next stuff. You know, that's really just what he's like kind of pushing here. And I think this is all just really like good advice. Oh, here's another piece where he like kind of attacks like lore heads, but it's the hard truth is that world building is not a story. Don't get me wrong, everyone loves cool lore. However, that alone cannot make a story. I see so many people discussing their worlds and ideas, and they get trapped in constantly revising those ideas before they ever set pen to paper. Yeah, true. True. Yeah, based. Isaac Young base take from Isaac Young. What? Oh, I'm gonna become a right winger now. No, but that's true. Like I can't count how many times I've been in a situation where people are just describing like one aspect of their quote unquote story, and it's just really like lore or a character. It's like yeah, like I feel like if someone is just focusing on one part of their story or just a lore in their story, then I'm like, oh, just use the lore then, because that's obviously what you're more interested in than the actual fucking story, you know? At least it's something, you know?
People might even buy that, you know, just a book describing things.
Yeah, people kind of just like when books like describe things. All right, but enough about that. Enough gushing about this. This is like one of the one article he writes that isn't like right wing. Let's get back. Let's dip our toes back in the right wing minutia. His next article is called "Here Was Tolkien. When Shall We Expect Another?" November 28th, 2022. And he starts the article. I think he says some really insightful shit here at the start of the article. The right wing has an art problem. It's a somewhat tired topic, but I don't think that anyone in our sphere really disputes on a factual level, right? But
I believe that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. They ain't sending their best. I'll say that much. The rest of the quote, he says, they will point to various causes such as lack of funding, no institutional support, etc. However, that doesn't change the reality on the ground. Right now, we have a wide scattering of indie content creators going their own way. Some projects are more successful than others, but it's still nothing compared to the Leviathan that is left-wing Hollywood. He evokes Hollywood a lot here, you know. He he's interested in like seeing like the demise of Hollywood. He sees it as like Hollywood is going to self implode, and the right wingers will be there to take the crown. You know,
Damn.
not I don't think he's exactly word for word. That's what he's thinks is gonna happen, but he does like I think this is an aspect of and I think both like lefties and right wingers like have this thing they're interested in. This is like kind of like this is like the start of him talking about right wingers a little bit more like as a community, and that they're like too scattered, you know. Um, and I think he goes into a little bit more depth with here's a quote. He asks like, so why is the right wing not producing classic works of literature? That's something he brings up. He mentions, meanwhile, the leadership of the right seems to be mostly grifters who just complain about the latest woke project. Those that do produce anything only seem to care about their own work. Neither groups are interested in shout outs or smaller creators. It seems fairly obvious the problem is one of marketing, right? It's funny that he says like
Oh
no
yeah.
shout outs to smaller creators. Me being big Twitter artist himself,
Brings a tear
so
to your eye, doesn't it?
brings this here to an eye. Like once again, like I think it's funny how like he says leftists don't believe in anything, but here as a leftist, I'm like like, oh no, Isaac, you're onto something here. I could see eye to eye to like what you're complaining about, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the whole line of like, it seems fairly obvious that the problem is one of marketing, right? And he delves into it more by saying, if the problem is indeed one of marketing, then the first step is establishing a brand, a name that sets up apart from the rest of the market. And yet there is no name brand for the art movement currently happening in the right wing. There's nothing we could say which defines our literature art as depicting right wing values. And I think he goes, and here's the next part where it gets a little bit more insightful. We don't have a name that defines us, not like previous artistic movements. There's no brand that puts forward what we're really about. I mean, we're all against the left, but what's our positive vision? Putting aside politics, what is our shared definition of the good, the true, and the beautiful? What is the vision that unites us all? Well, if you spent any time in the online space, you would know there isn't any. The truth is that there's no unified right wing. We may stand against the left, but that's about it. And I think he's like, that's like really like self-reflect. That's like the most self-reflective I've seen like kind of any right winger be. You get what I'm saying, Julian? Because it's like, yeah, they're all like, I notice we're all scattered, and the only thing that unites us is like hating the left, And I mean, he doesn't question too much about the left because it's like, oh, the left are demons, they're evil, they do all the bad things, right? That's easy world to like. It's funny that he'll self-reflect about the people who he associates with, like the side he's on, but he won't like, I don't know, he won't extend that courtesy to the left because maybe the left is not this like unified like force that he thinks it is, because over here on the left, I wouldn't call Hollywood leftist at all. They're like way more like fucking like neoliberal, and I don't know, Isaac might say that like the phrase neoliberal is just describing the same thing as a liberal, but like over here, I mean, to some people, yeah, but like neoliberal is specifically, it's like just another type of conservative, really, that can pretend to be about all these like progressive values and whatnot. Could what's the word for it, where you just show off that like, oh, look how progressive I am, but really they want the thing that like most conservatives want. Like I think a neoliberal is mostly like the people who are like socially liberal, economically conservative, which are very kind of like contradictory things, but they could like function pretending to like give a shit about like oppressed minorities and like lower class people while still like making a shitload of money, while, and I think Isaac just groups these all as like the left, because like he's complaining about the struggles of like smaller creators, and like I could like relate to that, like Isaac, we both live in the same world, we're both like struggling indie creators, like that's something.
Another timeline, you both would be working like back to back in the Marvel bullpen.
I
I fucking
don't
hate
think he
Stan.
likes.
Yeah, man, me too. I hate that guy.
I think I was thinking in another timeline we would have been brothers. But yeah, like, I live in this shitty world that he's also experienced, because he does like he does in later articles kind of break down this economic crisis that like people are kind of like stuck in, and like what also zoomers like him like, face, that there's no like future worth working towards. He does talk about like, well, the right needs to show that we can show a future worth living for, and like, well, people on the left could agree to that too, right?
Yeah.
That is not like there's not a hard jump for like the left. Actually, I see a lot of them advocating for stuff like that, like all the fucking time. I think in the right wing circles, when it comes to like the indie scene, there's more like a fuck you, I had mine, kind of like attitude. And I'm not saying that like there wasn't like too many like liberals who didn't have that mentality. I
Oh
like,
yeah.
I like Image Comics as much as the next guy, but those guys had that mentality of fuck you, I have mine. They weren't interested in like unions for artists or like collective like work where they all could all uplift each other. No, these guys were kind of like, we're the best of the best, fuck you guys, and then like, fucked off. And like half of me think, oh, that's base, they're taking the power into their own hands. But the other half of me is kind of like, well, like they encourage this kind of like self-fulfilling like individuality, that like just focuses
Which
on
is
like,
not
oh,
cool.
not cool. Which, yeah, I focus on Todd McFarlane making like an action figure of himself where he has his fucking feet out, But enough about that. Enough about that. Let's see what else our buddy over here like has to say about oh wait, earlier I was gonna mention, he talks about there's like no artistic movement we could the right wing could label itself. He was younger when he wrote this, but like artistic movements are things like you label after the movement happens, right?
Yeah,
Like
like I
it's
think at this point, the right wing artistic movement exists in memes, which, as an author, maybe that's not as cool, it's not as sexy, but I
would
think
you
that's where it's at right now.
call like memes like in a right wing art movement? I don't know if I'd call it that. I think what, like
Maybe
drawing
it's like a
pictures of ugly
subcategory of like the concept of memes.
does that
Like,
count as like an art movie? See, this is the thing that I'm talking about. It's like when in the 80s where they're saying like we're gonna start using the 80s aesthetic. They didn't say
mm,
that, right? That was like
yeah.
something after, like they realized, oh, there
And then
was
the
an
90s had like
aesthetic.
five different quote unquote movements.
I think I mean a lot of times movements are just like located to like kind of like certain areas. They're never like this wave that's going on. We think of what's like the most famous artistic movement or like time in history of art would have been like the Renaissance, right? But like, poor people during the Renaissance weren't aware they were in the fucking Renaissance, right? This is
True.
something only like the wealthy fucking notice, and I don't even know if they called it the Renaissance. I don't think they called it the Renaissance during the Renaissance, right? That was something like in retrospect. Oh, like a lot of people had a lot of money, and they were commissioning so much work during this specific time. It's something that you could go back and like reflect on. You know,
Right.
so like this, I don't know. I think he like. I mean, ultimately, Isaac wants to be part of something bigger than himself. I mean, who doesn't? But he sees that like this that the right isn't kind of like unifying in this way he would like to. What were you gonna say, Julian?
Oh, I was just corroborating what you were saying about like how one might want to be a part of a bigger thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, and actually, I just realized that later in this article, he does talk about like he says we don't have a name because we're all just individuals pursuing our own interests and beliefs. There could be no name for the current right wing artistic movement because it's not there. It doesn't exist. Everyone's just doing their own thing. Yeah, like I said that earlier. You don't notice artistic movements until like after it happens. Here he has another quote where he says, "I recently watched a podcast where one of the hosts said that we're currently going for a renaissance of right wing art with all the individual creators starting to make their own project." I think that description is wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think. Do you think there's like what's like a left wing art? Do you think there's like a left wing artistic movement that's happening right now? I don't think there's like anything I could say that's kind of like unified. You know.
Yeah, nothing comes to mind. Maybe furry art, but I hope not.
I think there's like different eras of furry art, like what furry art becomes popular. Anything with like in comics, like a big one that comes to mind is like, oh, when original TMNT came out, there was a big boom for black and white like comics, specifically about like furry animals, you know.
Yeah.
And that's where we got stuff like Usagi Yojimbo, right? But that was like people like chasing a trend, you know. I haven't dwelled too deep into like how artistic movements like work or how do we classify one, you know. But I think it is, yeah, it's just something we classify in retrospect. And I think another angle is like trends, you know, like market factors, like economics. Maybe there isn't like a right wing artistic movement because there hasn't been the right wing book that sells so well. Everyone wants to make that too, you know? Yeah, because it was like when after like Adventure Time came out, everyone was trying to do their Adventure Time, right? They're trying to do their own.
7 different Bob's Burgers out right now.
7 different Bob's Burgers. After Steven Universe, there was like everyone's trying to do their own Steven Universe, you know? Yeah, it's like you latch onto something that's like kind of popular. I think the thing is that like Isaac would like something like we need another Tolkien who could make something that all of us right wingers could like latch on to, you know. I mean, that being said, like I mean, not too many of like the latcher-ons or the people who follow trends like are kind of remembered like too much, you know, unless, you know, like after the fact, like
you have to be like really deep in the sauce to like contemplatively recall Biker Mice from Mars and go, yeah,
that was the time, you know, right? And another thing too is that like how much is that like polluted by like nostalgia, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it, maybe you just can't avoid looking at things with nostalgia with artistic movements because you have to. They already happen, you know. Like nostalgia is a little bit of the percentage of it looking back, you know.
In 10 years' time, we'll be nostalgic for the current era of Twitter Coomer artist.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, once it's illegal, you're not allowed to draw it no more. Yeah, so ultimately, you know, it's like he just ends the essay with being like, we may not be Tolkien or Lewis or any of the rest, but we will be the ones to inspire them. You know, that's a very like I might never see Utopia, but I want to get us closer there kind of thing. You know,
that's not a bad way to look at it.
That's not. That's like a healthy way. That's a very healthy way to look at it. You know, it kind of reminds me back to his essay about like writing. He mentions that like don't try to reach for perfection. It doesn't exist, which is something I also believe in. Like perfection doesn't exist, so like, you know, don't like worry about it. You know, actually actually it's perfect. It's better that perfection doesn't exist because you constantly have to chase it. You know,
right? Do you think that's why Bright came out so badly? Someone saw Max Landis say, "This is going to be my Star Wars," and they said, "Oh, this guy's life."
Oh man, he's that reminds me. He later on, Isaac does kind of say something insightful. Well, not exactly about what you said, but his last article, which I mean I'll save for later because there's like that's connected back to like the story I read of his. He mentioned something about how like so that one like right wing show came out, right? Like Mr. Burcham. Right? Yeah. Like they're trying to do a right-wing Family Guy or whatever. Right? And everyone fucking hates it. Even like Isaac Young fucking hates it. He thinks that shit is fucking cringy.
Thank goodness.
I've read like his articles, and knowing Isaac Young, I don't think he likes sitcoms. Like I just don't think he fucks with them, you know? And I don't think he's realized that yet, because like the way he like complains about sitcom, it seems like he wants them to be something else. Right? like like he kind of just want a straightforward like story instead of like an episodic sitcom. So because later on he has another, there was like another like Twitter thread that he got shitted on before the Starship Trooper one, talking about like Futurama and how like he wished like the character Fry would grow as a character and change. And everyone kept saying that like, oh well, that wouldn't work because it's like episodic. Everything will go back to the status quo. Characters can't change, you know. And
Yeah.
you know what his actually, fuck, dude, I'll jump through some of his articles because some shit is just more interesting to talk
I think he's
about. But
there. Like, I want to see Fry have a realistic panic attack.
right, exactly. I want to see Fry have a realistic panic attack. No, he oh wow, what the fuck? No, this can't be right. Yo, no, I'm just scrolling through the notes I have, and huh, the the big ass article that he wrote about Futurama, I don't have that fucking saved. What? Nah. Oh my god, cause I'm gonna fucking, wow, no, that can't be right. That cannot be right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm pausing it because wow. I was at work yesterday, like just organizing the whole articles, being like, I'll just have all the notes on one Google Doc, and so I won't get fucking lost, right? And oh wait,
You know those YouTube videos where they're like advertising some sort of organization software? This would be a great time to like segue into that sponsorship. Like, oh, this episode was sponsored by Superdo. With Superdo, you can organize your notes easily and on any platform. Add notes, different view displays, everything you need in order to make sure that you have everything you need.
Yeah, exactly. This would have been perfect for that, but
use the code main character to get the first 3 months completely free.
Okay. All right. So he talks about how I mentioned earlier he wishes Futurama will see the character Fry like change, you know, and like grow as a person, you know, and not always be like the dumb guy that resets in like every episode, you know. Yeah. And that's like an attack on like sitcoms itself, you know, because characters reset at the end of sitcoms. Actually, that's like the one great appeal about sitcoms, is that there is consistency. You know, a character could change, sure, or whatnot. That's fine. You know, they'll grow and learn. But like, you know, it resetting, it brings a level of comfort. That's like mostly like the goal of sitcoms, is to like just to create kind of comfort. You know. And there's like a whole Futurama episode about that too, where with the woman lawyer episode. You know, I don't know if you've seen that one. But
it's been a while. I only remember like bits of it.
It's an episode where like what's it called? The fucking there's like aliens who get like old broadcast signals from Earth, and they're watching this one lady lawyer sitcom, but the last episode was never recorded, so they want to attack Earth to like turn over that last episode, but it was just never made. So the crew, they have the Planet Express crew like make their own like final episode, and Leela tries to like change it where like I'll make her have agency by like falling in love and whatnot, and then like they hate that concept, but then and Fry's are like, Leela, you can't challenge the audience with a sitcom. Like they want like bland consistency. They want it that things will always like be the same, you know. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of like one of the major appeals of like older sitcoms, even like sitcoms now. Like people really like that. Like there could be like a subtle change, you know, and that kind of just happens like naturally. Now, anyway, Isaac says that like it's bullshit to say that a sitcom character can't change. You know what his excuse is? His excuse is because the process of Flanderization exists, you know, where like you know what Flanderization is, Julian? I'm pretty sure you know what it is, right? Yeah. So for the audience who don't know, Flanderization is kind of like when a character in a sitcom, like if the sitcom goes on long for a while, like newer writers on the show are gonna like focus in on like the traits, the character traits of a character that stand out the most. They'll latch onto those and they'll just keep doing it. They'll just keep using those character traits for future episodes over and over again until like the character just becomes those traits, you know. And the name comes from the character of like Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, who like didn't start off being this like hardcore like Christian. That came like later as he appeared more and more episodes, you know, because they just latched down to that trait, right? And the thing is that like I don't think that's like, I think Isaac's like point about that is that he doesn't think that's something that happens by accident, right? He
Yeah.
thinks that's like on purpose, you know. And it's very like what? Like it's just kind of like a, I wouldn't even say it's like human error. It's just kind of like a human like kind of like a quirk, like something we just, it just happens like socially, you know, that like yeah, when the writers rooms keeps like changing and they add new people, you know, they have to like latch on to what was like established, so they'll like kind of like stick with that, you
Is it
know.
Flanderization that Ron Stoppable's whole character becomes Nako's and having a baby sister? Maybe. Does it ruin the show? No.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think the thing is that with like thinking that flannerization is something that happens on purpose, is that like okay, let's say that flannerization is done on purpose, right? And but like even what like Isaac Young is advocating for um is not at the same level as flannerization, right? Like Fry like being stupid and then he just gets stupider. That's not the same as like then Fry changes as a person and then like marries Leela and he inherits Planet Express. That's like a bunch. That's like like character arcs. You know, flannerization can't be comparable to character arc. It's like something that happens more subtly. You know, and a lot of times people don't really notice it because the way we used to watch sitcoms is that they would come out weekly, right?
Yeah.
But if you binge them, you're gonna notice, like, you know, I was binging The Simpsons and I noticed like when characters when they kind of like click on a character quirk and then they're just constantly using that, you know, you notice it more with like binging, you know. And that's like one thing that I think Isaac also kind of has trouble with, and this might be coming from him being like young or not thinking too hard about it, is he doesn't like keep in mind the format of something, you know, as as like he doesn't consider the format when he talks about like something, like when he's like, oh, why does all this happen in sitcoms, why can't this happen? It's like, oh, okay, because a sitcom is formatted like this, you know. And because of all these other like bajillion things that happen with it, you know. But that's
It's
like
kind of like how Star versus the Forces of Evil has a very controversial final episode where Star destroys the concept of magic in the universe, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, she genocided all of those magical creatures, but show ruined." And it's like, well, that probably wasn't something the writers were thinking about. It's a fantasy action comedy. You know, you're supposed to go,
mhm.
"Oh, she destroyed the concept of magic so that she and Marco could be together."
Actually, you know what, now I think about it, like I actually, you know what, I take it all back. Isaac might not be crazy, actually. He might not be insane because he might just be. He's probably. I think he's just describing Steven Universe,
Probably.
right? Because it starts episodic and then like Steven goes through like arcs and changes as a person. You know, I
Lots of
think.
shows do that.
Yeah, a lot of shows like now do that.
They onboard
Like
you with the wacky hijinks, and then episode 13, everything starts to get
I
serious.
think where it happened. I think like the thing that made it catch on was like Adventure Time, right?
Yeah,
And by the way, Isaac has an article about Adventure Time, and we'll get into that,
which it's very
right?
gradual in Adventure Time.
Yeah, I say yeah. In Adventure Time, it's very much more. I don't want to say realistic, but yeah, you're right. Gradual is a better word, right? Because you don't really like notice it as you're watching it. I think people did kind of notice because people in like by season season 5 between season 6 is like that, is those like bridge where people are really fucking dropping off of Adventure Time.
Yeah.
Right. But I think after that kind of like hump, like Adventure Time still consistently like throws you banger after banger, right? That being said, I mean like, okay, so Isaac is he's 20, he's like 23, right? He would have grown up a little bit on Adventure Time. He mentions watching it as like a kid a little, you know. I mean, I think he is from that era where like, yeah, like he's kind of a little bit post like sitcoms, like, you know, he didn't grow up on Seinfeld where things don't really change, you know.
Right.
Like, yeah, he didn't grow up on fucking Dexter's Lab or Samurai Jack, you know. It's things
Oh
just
man,
always stayed the
imagine
same.
living in the era of waiting for Samurai Jack to end.
I lived through it.
Ooh.
Buddy. We all lived through it, you and me.
Yeah.
Right. So Isaac like doesn't consider there was a different way to do it before, you know, right? Oh my god. What were we talking about? We I jumped around a little bit on
The concept of the sitcom, according to Isaac Young.
yeah, I guess I'll talk about another like kind of instance of another kind of like instance of Isaac like not considering like the format when he talks about something is when he talks about Cyberpunk 2077, because he has this article. I'm jumping 2 years into the future here with these articles, but he's got an article called and Cyberpunk and Gay Space Communism, right? So his opening quote is, "It is a hobby of mine to track the decline in modern entertainment, but I'm not interested in dissecting the garbage that has become so episodic to our TV screens and computers. No, I'm not interested in tracking what media is good despite the decline in entertainment." Doesn't that sound kind of contradictory?
Kind of, yeah. Because
I think it could have been a better way to write that, right?
Maybe it feeds into the preceding statement, but it is kind of a
the full paragraph after that. The rest he says, "It is those gleaming gems floating in a sea of trash that I find particularly remarkable." Okay, he's like moving away from the statement. "Very few current year products leave an impression on me anymore. I visit the movie theater." He wrote theater wrong, by the way. I visit the movie theater maybe once a year. I stick to video games at least a decade old, if not more. And I can't remember the last time I watched a TV show in full. Right?
So I also spell theater that way. Is that wrong?
I mean, on the
sound off in the comments. What's the right way to spell theater?
No, it's wrong. Like, that's not how you spell theater. What? No, that's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. Yeah, you're dumb, Julian. You're stupid.
I might be dumb.
That's okay. I forgive you. So anyway, he talks about Cyberpunk 2077, and he's reflecting on like like what's promised in like cyberpunk worlds, and how it's a lot more cooler than what we're currently getting, you know, which is really funny. Something he says here where it's like, Blade Runner's LA or Cyberpunk's Night City would be a positive improvement upon the society we have now. Just stepping into these worlds, despite all the so-called misery and dystopian world building, they feel so much more alive than we have now. What's your there's something that I thought about when I read that sentence. Although I want to see what did you deduce from that?
I don't know. An eagerness to, I guess, observe. What's that term? In industry or something like that. Industrialism.
Um, I
Because when I think about living in like the world of Blade Runner, it's too much. Like you can only get so excited to enter a sea of giant buildings.
right.
Cyberpunk, I'm kind of like more. I can kind of see it because it's just like it's just Las Vegas in terms of how Cyberpunk designs its cities and stuff. You're just going to Nevada for a good time, and it's the future.
Oh, okay. Um, well, you came onto him a lot nicer than I did. What I deduced from that? Because like when I read that, my first I was like, I wonder if he goes outside often.
I did think that, but I
yeah, you wanted to be nice.
yeah. Because yeah, if you do go outside, there's stuff.
There is stuff
Truly,
out there.
leave the suburb. There are cities. Go to them.
Oh, my fucking god. Yeah, I'm just okay, yeah, because when I thought of that later on in another part of the article, he says, "Perhaps I don't get out much." That's really funny.
Very self-reflective.
Okay, well, I'll say this. I think this is another example of him missing the format that he's discussing about, because okay, why do you think he is much more engaged with the city in Cyberpunk and the city in Blade Runner? Why do you think he finds that more engaging?
The implication of freedom and the empowerment that it engenders.
Yeah, like as a video game, it wants you to engage with the environment, right? As a movie, Blade Runner wants to like suck you in, right? And because like movies and video games have a limited amount of time that you could like play them. I mean, sure, you could play a video game forever, but your life will always be like longer than any video game. I mean, at this point, if you're 23-year-old, you have lived longer than any like video game could go on, right? So
you've lived longer than Mario ever will.
Yeah, exactly. Because like
Mario has died 20 times.
like most video games, you could beat in like 8 or 10 hours now or whatnot, or longer. I don't know. I don't play too many fucking games. I go outside. And
a lot of games are leaning towards like a mandatory 40 hours, but older stuff, yeah, you're usually looking at anywhere from like 5 to 10 hours.
Okay, so if you're 23 years old, your lifespan is longer than 40 hours, right? That's the correct thing to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so the amount of time you get with a video game or a movie is very limited. So a creator who wants to really pull you in will like sell you on a location or a place as fast as they can. So like the world of like Cyberpunk and the world in Blade Runner is more engaging because that's on purpose. He does it, but he instead of like realizing like, okay, they in pieces of work they make things more engaging because of the amount of time they have with you. He doesn't see it as that. He sees it more like, oh, the real world sucks compared to this epic cool video game, right? Not realizing that the epic cool video game is designed to think it's epic, to make you think it's epic and cool as soon as possible. In the real world, you gotta like work for it. You gotta walk around your fucking neighborhood. You gotta like see what's going on.
I have to get permission to enter the building so I can take the elevator to the top. I can't run across the side of the building like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, exactly. This isn't like this isn't a kooky cool RPG where you can just walk into anyone's house. I don't know if you get to do that in Cyberpunk. I never played it. I probably never will, to be honest. But
it is possible. It takes some work though. You can't just like go out and buy special high jump jet legs.
Yeah, ultimately I'm saying he doesn't like he's overlooking like, okay, maybe these things are meant to be like tantalizing on like purpose, because in the real world you gotta like really like work for stuff like that. It's fun. He mentions that he doesn't really see the dystopia in like Cyberpunk because you play as these epic cool badasses and whatnot, right? You don't do that in the real world. It's like, well, yeah. In most like video games, they're gonna like avoid showing you like the dystopia, or like I haven't played Cyberpunk, because maybe they do show a lot of dystopia and it goes over like Isaac Young's head. I don't know,
It is
right?
very pointed in how it portrays the dystopia. You can miss elements of it depending on which quote unquote life path you choose.
Mm-hmm.
But like everyone that starts with the corporal light path, which is the correct one, anyone who says otherwise is a liar. It's very like in your face about how dystopic it is, and they really drive it home when your character goes from being a pretty doing okay for themselves corporate drone, instantly like not so much as fired, but like turned into a fall guy for someone else's minor oversight. Like it wasn't even
Oh
that big of a
wow.
thing, but when it went wrong, they were like, "Okay, fuck you, you're dead."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
like real
So
life.
yeah. So I think like I think Isaac is just like, overlooking that he gets to play as someone who could be a badass in Cyberpunk, and in like the real world, you don't get to start off. Well, you don't like, the path to being a badass is not as easy as being a badass in a video game,
Yeah.
right? And he that's more of a and he's seen that as more of the common condemnation on real life, right? Um, it's funny that he's really like anti-sex. He's one of these like anti-sex zoomers,
Oh
right?
damn.
Did you know that one article that was going around where it's all like, oh, it seems like that there's been way less sex scenes in movies, like it's gone down to like 40 or 60%, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because Isaac like quote tweeted that, and said like, he was like, oh, doesn't look like that to me. Looks like there's been more of them. Right. And I think that's really funny. He probably didn't like that sex scene in Starship Troopers, where like she like starts sucking on his nipples, right? But he probably thought it was super cool that, like, because of spoilers for Starship Troopers, the movie is very like anti-love. Like these characters who've like fallen for each other, like the woman who like was sucking his nipples on during the sex scene, she gets like fucking horribly killed. You know, like any character that people have fallen in, any character in Starship Trooper that's fallen for another character, has been like gets like horribly killed. They get horribly fucking killed off, right? And that's like, the movie saying something very subtle. I don't know if Isaac
Yeah.
saw that and said like, yeah, that's what that bitch gets for trying to fuck him. Fuck that stupid bitch, right? Oh my god, I'm going through my, because I bookmarked a bunch of like Isaac Young tweets. This one is really great because someone tweeted out, how does your world handle issues of diversity and inclusion? Are there specific laws or cultural practices that promote harmony? And this is like a writing community question, right? Like explaining like world building. So it's like, how does your fictional universe in your writing handle like diversity and inclusion? You know what Isaac Young quote tweeted that with?
What did he say?
He only said one word. He said war. So like I yeah, if you're just a different skin color in his writing, you just know they're already at war with each other. That's something you just gotta fucking assume. I'll put that in like the collection of like really kind of like racist things Isaac has said. Yeah, I'll say this. We're hot take. I don't like it when he gets racist. I think I could say that.
I wonder how that would work in a story conceptually. Like if a character has to go to groceries and they see a like
Black person.
enemy entity, do they engage in like combat mode or do they continue buying their milk?
they gotta they gotta kill each other. They, yeah, I guess so. Oh yeah, okay. I found the tweet where it's like, sex and nudity in movies has decreased by almost 40%. Movies with no sexual content has decreased from 20% per year to 50%. And Isaac Young says, I don't believe you. It's funny how confidently he says that when he's admitted that he doesn't really watch too much media, you know? So,
Yeah.
like, I wonder, like, what are you watching? Or, like, is it just, like, are you seeing, like, right-wing memes and thinking like, yeah, like, oh yeah, this is what's currently like going on, like, or like, I don't know, like maybe he has a more broader infant definition, because like I can't remember the last time I saw like a sex scene in a movie, and maybe he like, maybe he wants to include people like, I don't know, like homosexuals, you know, LGBTQ in that category too. So he's like, he thinks he's like, when a gay person shows up on screen, he instantly relates that back to like sex or nudity. I don't know. Not gonna lie, Isaac, if you want to get on the podcast, I'd be down to talk to you. I think it'd be enlightening. I think we'll have a lot to discuss about. You know, what do you think, Julian? You think it'd be a great guest?
I think so. I have Sesame Street related questions, genuinely. But that's for anyone. I always loved asking people about Sesame Street.
You think people's opinion about Sesame Street reveals a lot about them? Is that what you're
Oh
saying?
yeah. Like just to start, like what people think about Telly Monster can tell you a lot about a person.
Epic. All right. Let's go back article hopping. I want to talk about his Adventure Time article, because I think he says more kind of enlightening things about right wingers and that. So going back a year, we're back. He uploaded this article on November 2nd, 2023. It's called "Adventure Time and the Subversion of Whimsy, or How the Right Wing Lost Their Children." Okay, so he starts it with a quote by Tolkien. Oh, this is like, he does a lot of Tolkien quotes. I wrote down on my notes here. I wrote down another Tolkien quote. Jesus.
He's a very quotable guy.
Very
You can just
quotable
like
guy.
imagine him saying things in like a very old timey British accent. Like the realm of the fairy story is wide and deep, high and filled with many things. Like I might be confusing him with C.S. Lewis, but I think Tolkien had a very broken British accent. So like
Mm.
his words wouldn't be fully formed. So he would be speaking with the cadence that you and I would have, but you would think, wait, what did he say?
You know,
So
you
it
know,
is very good that he wrote things down.
Fun fact, apparently it was Tolkien who like helped convert C.S. Lewis to Christianity.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's like part of that, right? Although I think too, or like, he's mentioned kind of like as the guy who like starts him from going on that path, which is like very interesting. I don't know much about like the religion of these guys. I'm not like Isaac Young. I don't think you got to know anything about the people who make the art to kind of get what the art is going for. I think art will always speak for itself, and even if art is confusing, because then like, just I just consider like, oh, what if they made it confusing on purpose? Like, I think the art will tell you that,
Like
right?
David Bowie stuff.
Yeah, like David Bowie stuff. Okay, so anyway, opening quote for this is conservatives lost the culture war when it forgot how to tell stories, or more accurately, when it forgot how to tell children's stories. I'll say this: I really wish he could pinpoint when they lost the culture war, because he never explicitly says, so I have to like deduce from clues. One thing that I do know is that Isaac really likes the '60s. The '60s, in his opinion, was like the golden era, right? Um,
Oh, that's interesting.
that is very interesting, right? Because I think a lot of really atrocious things happened in the '60s. We got for-profit Medicare in the '60s, and we're like, that killed so many fucking people. And also I think when did we get civil rights? Wasn't it the '60s when we got civil rights for African
I don't
Americans?
remember the exact year.
Yeah, the Civil Rights Acts of 1964. Um, I don't really get Isaac's opinion about people of color too much, aside from he doesn't really want them to be in Star Wars or in Warhammer or whatever, right? So I don't
Well,
know.
whenever I think that way, I just go back and I watch Ben Hur. It's right there. It'll never change. They will never cast Ben-Hur as a guy, anything other than a white guy.
I wonder how he feels about like a left wing Mexican like really relating to the things he's talking about and being like, "Oh damn, Isaac, you might be spitting here. You might be cooking." I wonder how that would make him feel.
He probably lets air out of his nose and goes, "Excellent."
In this opening paragraph, he also uses the word atomized bugman. Have you heard the slang bugman? That's something that's really popular with the right now.
I used to use it a lot. Apparently, I was using it incorrectly, though.
Yeah, bugman seems to be
But I
kind of
recognize it
like,
as a derogatory term.
yeah, bugman is like, I mean, I say it's almost like another word for like gooner, almost kind of, or like someone who
Yeah, somewhat
is,
adjacent to that.
yeah, someone who's more interested in like kind of like those instant like dopamine like rush, right, of like doing the things that give you instant gratification. Urban Dictionary, bugman, product of globalist influence. These people subscribe to all narratives pushed onto them by globalist education and media without question. The name comes from the idea that we must start eating bugs to prevent climate change. Also compares the person to a bug who is hive mind and easily collective. You know, it's funny how like it's funny how right wingers will be like very like, well, we'll say they're pro individuality, but ultimately what they want is they want everyone to kind of like believe in the same thing, you know. Like earlier I mentioned that Isaac is like, oh, the right isn't kind of like unified and believing like the same things, you know, right?
Right.
And the thing is that like that, you know, that's kind of a thing with the left too. Like we're not all, you know, we're all different types of leftists and whatnot, and we're not all completely unified on the same thing. But I think it's better that way, you know, because then it's like, oh, it's several different things could be tackled. Maybe it'd be faster if we were all hive mind. Yeah, probably. But like, I don't want to lose that. I value that individuality, you know. Um, he has a fucking quote. That was like he has an article talking about like how the right can use horror to win the culture war. Okay, so yeah, in his article where he talks about like the right winning the culture war by using like horror stories. He has a quote by a guy called Zero HP Lovecraft. I don't know who the fuck that is. Sounds like a really fucking stupid ass like handle. Anyway, this person's quote is, what would it really mean to win the culture war? I think it would mean that the average normie, the average NPC reflectively and thoughtlessly recites right-wing ideas in the same automatic, wow, I don't know words, automatic, it's catastrophic register that they recite left-wing ideas today. And it's kind of funny that like, I mean, isn't that just another form of like a bug man, like a hive, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Which is how I was using it when I would
mhm.
encounter guys like that.
Yeah, like I think that like, I mean, I like the term NPC. I don't like have that original belief where like because I think the original belief with NPC is that like there's only a limited amount of souls, so some people are just don't have any. And it's like, what the fuck is the evidence for this? This is they're just saying things. Maybe there's not that many souls. Why would there
I think
be
the
any
person
souls to
that
begin with?
came up with that probably subscribes to the "we're in the Matrix" theory.
Yeah, maybe. I think that that idea came from like an X board on 4chan.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So it's like, I don't know, maybe like, because I'll call some people NPCs mostly if they parrot things they hear just like ad nauseum, or they just only use buzzword. I like calling those kind of people NPCs, but I don't really think they don't have a fucking soul or something, you know.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if Isaac really, I wouldn't put it past Isaac that he does believe there's people out there who don't have souls. Like, because obviously to him lefties wouldn't have souls, right? You
Oh
know,
yeah, they're demons.
they're demons, right? Like they wouldn't have fucking souls. So, you know, sometimes, you know, there's people who don't have souls, and so he's just kind of accepted that a part of the population is like a hive mind. The problem is that the right needs to be in control of that hive mind, right?
That could be a interesting science fiction story. What if you woke up in the wrong hive mind?
That'd be kind of cool. It's a start. It's like a start of a premise. I'll say that much. Uh,
Like the character growth would be, oh, I've got to get to the correct hive mind, but then at the end they realize, oh no, I have to be an individual.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm going back to his where he talks about how the right wing lost their children, right? His article about like Adventure Time and the subversion of whimsy. Um, so he has a quote here that's like civilizations die when the virtues of fathers fail to pass on to their sons, and then begins the decline. classic decline based. I'm fucking
Love to see it.
love to see it.
Or rather, say the line, Bart.
So the way he sees it, I think this paragraph right here is pretty crucial about how he has it, how he's looking at it. However, I find a glaring absence in this burgeoning sphere, and I think he's referring to like the right wing, like kind of like indie creative sphere, right? The new stories being written now are almost exclusively for adults. They are for people who have already learned to swim in the great deluge of woke entertainment. But if we wish to upend the incessant propaganda, we will have to create a scene for those taking their first steps in culture. Already, Zoomer generation has been sheared in two between those who have a healthy childhood and those who did not. I don't know what I mean by that. Generation Alpha is looking even worse, and we frankly cannot afford to these losses in the long term. He's got another quote here: "The long-standing view of conservatives is that children's stories are nothing more than silly nonsense and a fundamental unserious affair. Maybe for the particular conservatives, I just wish he would take pause and realize that his view has been rallying cry for the left in the culture war. Every IP that the Main Street conservative claims to cherish was destroyed under the banner of calling it children's entertainment. After all, children's stories are unserious. Then what's the point in what goes on in them?" So I guess he's referring to like when they add like a black person in Star Wars. And people say like, you can't add a black person in Star Wars, and then the left replies with like, dude, it's just a kids show, dude, don't worry, right? And it's like he sees that as they're like being like dismissive, like oh wow, you're taking it too serious. And I'm pretty sure that's part of like leftist like sophistry, right? Like
Probably, yeah.
yeah, like that's fucking like leftist, like fucking using like their fucking evil, right? But and the thing is like, oh, you must look embarrassing because you're caring about like children shit, and it's like I don't know if that's like the take I would have. It's like I don't know if that's like okay, because so he's accusing that the left is like lying when they say that things are just children's shows, that they're unserious. That's like what he's saying when people call something children's shows, that they're unserious, right? And because like if they're unserious, then why are the left so interested in putting woke propaganda in them? Obviously, they're important, right?
He has a point.
Yeah, exactly. He has a point, because it's super, because by adding black people into Star Wars, it makes it like a very super serious topic all of a sudden, right? When ultimately like it shouldn't fucking matter, like because I mean like I said before, like he could like figure out that there's no point in complaining about the Mary Sue. That's just a buzzword. That's just a symptom of a bigger problem. He can he not also connect the dots that complaining about diversity is also like a symptom of a bigger problem. So there's no point in complaining about like diversity and whatnot. I mean, he doesn't exclusively say like He doesn't like talk about race in this like article, but because I'm just saying that because he's just using words like woke, and like that itself is also a very like vague phrase. Like maybe like it would be really fucking cool if Isaac Young drops an article that says like why the right needs to drop the word woke, you know. Oh my god. I think he actually I think he does kind of break down I think he does like break down what woke means. Actually I the thing is that like I saw him like other articles, right? And
Oh,
and I can't remember if there is like articles that like explain like what woke is, and it's very funny because I was going through it and there was like so many things I could think of that okay, cool, found it, found his found here's his description of like woke. Okay, so putting it simply, wokeness is an intersectional political coalition that is anti-Christian, anti-white, anti-masculine, and anti-hierarchical in nature, right? So if it's like anti-Christian, it's woke, anti-white, anti-masculine, and anti-hierarchical, Um,
I like all of those things. I don't
you're like
like hierarchies though, so I guess
not
I'm
a
woke.
not a big fan of hierarchies. Not a big fan of hierarchies. I don't know. The thing is that like you gotta like you gotta be convincing of like okay why are being anti all these things like a bad thing, because like yeah I just don't get like why like because let's say can there not be a hypothetical thing that like has all like because is there anything that's been like explicitly like anti-Christian? I guess like maybe like jokes on Family Guy. He does complain like in that one token essay he talks about oof, fucking just moving all over the place with this. He's got a lot to say, this guy, but he uh he talks about Christianity in an earlier part where okay, yeah, in his article about Tolkien, he says the average person didn't abandon Christianity because they read the Bible and found contradictions in it. That's really fucking funny. But they abandoned traditional values because okay, so he's just using like traditional values synonymous with Christianity. They abandoned traditional values because those were lambasted in all their entertainment. I can't count how many TV shows out there depict the church as money grubbing, pedophilic, or just downright delusional. Well, I I don't know if like okay like because Isaac is like a young guy. I think he was 21 when he wrote this article. Um, he like people those like things they were putting in entertainment were things they saw. They saw that like the churches are money grubbing, right? Like they don't pay taxes, so that would incentivize some people to be as greedy as possible if they can't pay taxes. Like, has he not seen like these evangelical like mega churches? Actually, I think Isaac Young should watch a Righteous Gemstones. I want
Oh,
to hear
he
the
probably
eyes.
would love it.
Do you think he'll love it? He probably would hate it because like they're shitting on like. Actually, I don't know because like I like Righteous Gemstones. I think though sometimes they're a little bit too lenient on evangelicals, but I don't know if maybe like Isaac would like that. I mean, Isaac is a Catholic, so maybe he just already doesn't fuck with evangelicals, right? But like, Catholics had like their super churches, their fucking like, massive like
Yeah.
16 chapels and whatnot. Is that not money grubbing? I guess that I guess that doesn't count as money grubbing because it's fucking like, oh, it's like, it's like for like culture or whatnot. So it's not like money grubbing. But like, at the same time, it's like a fault. It's like they're showing off their fucking wealth, that's like fucking money grubbing. pedophilic. I mean, I don't know how. Um, fuck it. Okay, so if he's 21 when he wrote this, and the movie Spotlight 2015, he would be around. That was like 9 years ago that the movie Spotlight came out, right? And
Holy shit.
and if he's 23, then that would make it like he would have been 14 when the movie Spotlight came out, right? No, he would have been. Oh no, fuck. He would have been. Oh my god, do I not know fucking numbers? No, he would have been 17. He would have been 17 when the movie Spotlight came out, right? I guess he didn't see Spotlight because the church is very fucking pedophilic. They move around like it's funny that he's saying this as a Catholic. I guess he just assumes everyone is lying. Like obviously this is like woke's lying, you know, like they're not basing it on any reality at all, you know, right? Yeah, it's weird how he thinks. I mean, he only thinks like this because it's easy. It's easy to think like this, you know. It's easy to think that it's just big bad guy trying to make like everything you like look bad. That's really fucking easy, you know. Instead of like not thinking that maybe like culture, maybe the perception that the right is like losing the culture war is because people have been very dissatisfied by the ideologies of the right, you know, and that's been reflective in the culture, you know. Culture and society itself, they feed on each other, but I'd say culture feeds way more on society than like the other way like around, you know. Because like how many fucking movies have there been there about advocating about peace and being like a good person, and like we still got some like awful people, sure, right? And we've been getting less technically more and more, you know. But ultimately what I'm saying is that like, you know, this isn't like let's just target Christianity. I know like he probably believes there's a giant international conspiracy to target Christianity and whatnot, you know, but Christianity can make itself look bad all by itself, you know. This isn't like but it's easy. It's easy to think that there's a fucking giant conspiracy out to get you, out to get everything you hold fucking dear, you know. But whatever. Like we all know this. You and me, Julian, we already know this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The other points about like what is woke, anti-white. Well, like white people don't exist, so like who cares? Anti-masculine. I don't know what's like I guess like anti-masculine would be like fucking in The Last Jedi when fucking what's the name of the Oscar Isaac character in The Last Jedi?
Finn?
No, not Finn. That's John
No,
Boyega.
Poe.
Oh, Dameron, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
anti-masculine was like when you tell no to a man, I guess, right? I guess that's like anti-masculine. God, every day I'm tempted to like I sometimes I say this as a meme. I'm probably gonna edit like together a fucking fake thumbnail for a YouTube video. It's gonna be a YouTube video. It's gonna be a thumbnail for a YouTube video um that's like fucking fifth like 20 hours long. It's gonna be a 20-hour long YouTube video, and the title is gonna be like naming every single like white straight character in fiction, you know. And just go through the list of all of existence, just every character, right? And just to kind of like because the thing is, and here's the thing, and I think because Isaac is like never like growing up, if you don't see how the world you don't see how the world was before you were born, right? You never will, right? But but there are things that just exist and you think, oh, this must have been normal, you know, right? Like like kids growing up where everyone has a phone, they would a part of them would be like this is the normal, right? We've always had phones. When like a couple year back, like no, I didn't get a phone until after I graduated high school, you know. But like they will see this as the fucking like normal. So like they'll see us as like the actual fucking status quo, and they'll never like look back and be like, oh, like has he taken the time to like see where people are coming from when they're like criticizing like Christianity? You know, he hasn't, because he already decided that their statements are invalid. Also, they're demons, so why the fuck would I ever question them, right? Is like what he's like saying, you know. But I think but I don't think that Isaac Young is that like bad of a person to like not be able to kind of like see where people are like coming from. You know, I think he has it in him because he could be like self-reflective, you know. And
Yeah.
so I just, you know, like if he could just be like convinced that like, oh wow, leftists aren't these like demons. They're people just like you and me, you know. And like, you know, if you could just see where a lot of them are fucking coming from. It's funny how like, because he says like, oh, it's very important you look into like the people who make the stuff you consume, and I don't think he really like applies that to like everything he like consumes. I mean, I don't think the majority of people don't, but like the fact that that's something he encourages, but not something that he'll like look into when he consumes any kind of media is kind of like telling, because like I feel like you'll get a bigger understanding of like, because like you don't need to like look into the people who make the stuff you enjoy, but looking into them does kind of like open your worldview a little bit more, you know. Understand like where they're coming from, you know. Yeah, you don't have to understand where they're coming from to like understand the work or anything, but like if you want to like, you know, be empathetic, you know, that's something you'll do, right? You know, and I see this kind of like capacity to be like empathetic to with Isaac Young, right? So I think that like, you know, he just needs to take like the couple more steps to like kind of like see what where like people are coming from. And yeah, I don't think he's fucking evil. I don't think the guy's like fucking like evil at all. You know? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um
Generally, the only evil people are the people that are like, I guess, turning the worst ideas into actionable, like recurring behaviors.
mhm.
Like, what's that guy? Drama Alert. He might be evil.
He could be evil. I mean, I think the people who do anything for like pure money, because that's like, you know, that's like doing something that isn't like, that's like antisocial, is to do everything for money, right? You know,
Yeah.
I think that's like very like antisocial behavior. Not understanding where people are coming from is antisocial. Referring to a whole group of people you disagree with as demons is like antisocial behavior too, you know, right? Not
But one can
going.
recover from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking from experience.
I, yeah. So you know, I think Isaac. You know, I'm not trying to like tell him to drop the whole right winger angle. I'm just saying that like I think you're on a path that could like help you a lot as a, not just as an artist but as a person, you know. And there's still more things I want to talk about with his article. I don't want to jump into straight to his to his Giga Hero stories, which I really like, because it's very interesting to see where Isaac says he's coming from with the story to what the story is exactly about. But you know, before we go into that, I do want to talk more about more kind of like insightful things Isaac has said. I'm going back to like his Adventure Time like essay. He says I agree with this like sentiment. Um Children's stories deal in serious matter, but they are stories with guardrails on so as to be most productive to children. The substance is trimmed and simplified to be more understandable to the youth, but the substance is still there. And I think that's very like insightful that that Isaac Young says that. But then he follows it with with his typical like woke bullshit, where it's like the problem with the woke is that they have nothing to offer, so all their entertainment is bad.
I think he hasn't seen the 9/11 episode of Arthur. If he saw that, he might change
He
his
might change
mind.
his mind. You know, he might see where it's like coming from. It's funny that like it's funny he has this like this understanding of how children's stories like kind of work, but he doesn't Like, can he not see that that's where like the left is also coming from when they say that? When they say like, well, it's just like a children's story, you know, right?
Yeah.
And bec- because like why get mad of like when Star Wars is called a children's story when, like, you know, it has its guardrails. The fact that the bad guys just look like bad people, that's a guardrail. We know who the good and bad Jedis are through like the color of their lightsaber. You know, those are like guardrails, you know, right? It's simplifying like who's
True.
good, who's fucking bad, you know? And if like I don't know, if a person of color fucking shows up, so fucking what, you know? I think I don't know like what he's asking for is for more kind of like straightforward, like kind of black and white like kids stories, right? I think we're kind of in this we're in this very fucking interesting age where like the children's stories are becoming a little bit more nuanced, you know. Um Stuff like Steven Universe, even Adventure Time is like very nuanced in like the lesson it's like trying to teach like kids, you know.
A little
Right.
too nuanced. Every day, someone's telling me, "Oh, Lemon Hope is cool, actually," and I'm like, "I don't believe you.
Lemon Hope is cool, dude. You suck. You're lame.
I don't believe you."
Lemon Hope is base, dude. And I bet if Isaac Young saw the Lemon Hope episodes, his head would like blow up. He would make an article about like Lemon Hope. Fuck Lemon Hope. I fucking hate Lemon Hope. but but Lemon Hope did nothing wrong, Julian, and you're wrong. I think you're a demon. I think you're one of these demonic leftists that Isaac Young is talking about.
I might be. That would
Oh
explain
my
a
god.
lot.
All right. So
I think a show that Isaac Young could get a lot out of, like a lot of entertainment value, is a show that I've been enjoying. It's called Homicide: Life on the Streets. And in this show, there are there's a branch of policing called the Homicide Unit. They investigate murders. And all the main characters are like head detectives within the Homicide Unit. Every episode, someone has died, and they got to find the killer. And I think it reflects a lot of values that guys like Isaac Young probably see themselves lacking in current media. And I would be very interested to get Isaac's opinion on it because his favorite character could be Frank Pembleton. He's the hard-nosed, no-nonsense detective of the unit, and he's a hardcore Christian. All the other characters are like, you know, weird liberal hippie types, if you want to look at it that way. And every other episode, Frank is like, you know, well, you know, God this and God that. But he also like doesn't take any nonsense from his coworkers. And the thing that I think would be interesting in terms of Isaac's perspective on that character is that Frank is black.
hello, you still there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I could hear you. I was like fucking cut off for like a good while.
Yeah, 2 minutes in, I noticed you weren't there, so I put a note for myself. Oh, an hour and 50 minutes. We probably have to cut out a bit of that.
Yeah. I'll be the one editing this, so I'll be the one
Uh,
rearranging it. But
I just kept talking after I noticed you were gone because I wanted to have a point to reference in the edit if necessary. So I just
okay,
started talking about a show nobody wants to watch, but I can't stop talking about it.
all right. Let's I'll go back, and I'll say you're so right, Julian. 100%. We totally didn't just get cut off. We totally didn't just get cut off there, and I didn't hear you. Hell yeah. Anyway, so Isaac says the left stories promote vice and encourage destructive behavior and facilitate the breakdown of human bonds. And in children's entertainment, they do this perniciously. I mean, that's the fucking word, right?
I like that word.
Yeah. I think we just disagree with that. Look, if you've seen Steven Universe, like, look, if you saw Steven Universe, I think all of his problems would be fixed. He just needs to watch all of Steven Universe and Steven Universe Future, and he'll get what he wants. I feel, right? Oh my god, it's just oh my god. There's so many like really good quotes in here. He says that conservatives understand the language of their defeat. I guess he could. I guess he sees that he's very insightful about like how they're losing the culture war. I think he does see Adventure Time as kind of like I guess kind of like the subliminal like left wing propaganda, you know.
It does have a lot of moments where it seems like it's written to be, oh, this is a teachable moment for you, the viewer.
Right.
But I wouldn't ding it for it because it's a lot better than a lot of shows have ever been at like doing that.
Literally saved Cartoon Network, right? Like
Yeah.
that's no fucking joke, you know. But but yeah, anyway, he says that like this is what makes left wing shows so insidious. People are hooked on glimpses of greatness or quality underlying mountains of trash as they become addicted because entertainment is cheap. This is the power of the left. The right wing needs to be wary of it. It's kind of funny because later kind of in his recent article he talks about like he he talks about like your work shouldn't be obvious about like what political standing it's a part of, you know, right? And he doesn't like I guess does he not like see that like okay, well maybe Adventure Time is kind of like doing that, you know, right? Like
Yeah.
I
I would think so.
yeah, it's like all these like kind of like techniques like of things like it's I mean, it's basically the whole like I mean, any kind of complaint he has about how the left wing like functions is just the whole Mary Sue thing again, where it's like, okay, maybe it's not this exactly, you know, maybe it's not fucking like maybe the
It's like missing the forest for the
yeah
trees
yeah
almost.
exactly, you know, because like can you not see that like I mean earlier when I was gushing about his like writing advice, like you know, can you not see that we all you know stem from the same like fucking place that there's no point in like pointing out like oh the problem with this work is because it does this one specific thing that literally no other work has ever done before and not like realizing that his knowledge of other work is like very like limited, you know. He doesn't like you know consume too much like media. He doesn't consume too much like sitcom or like episodic stuff, and it's fine that you're not like interested in consuming all that. But like to make, I don't know, to make kind of like these grandiose like statements about stuff like that, you know, yeah, you're missing the forest from the trees, you know. You know what I'm saying, Julian?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if there's too much I want to like devolve in because in these other like articles really because not gonna lie while like making the notes for this episode I was very like I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to like present or what's gonna be like worthwhile because the thing is like there's so much like kind of like gold like A plus content that I think Isaac Young presents in his like work that I think is super funny, right? And and it's like god it's like a lot, you know, and I have it and I'm like jumping like for back and forth and all these like other things, you know, but I don't really want to make like a part two to this to be honest, you know, because I kind of just want to be done. I kind of want to put the book on Isaac Young. It's like over, you know. We haven't even talked about how his opinions about like how the right wing could use like horror to like their advantage because like the right is actually disgusted by things and the left are never disgusted by things. And his big example is like The Shape of Water as an example of like a left wing horror movie, which is not even a horror movie, you know, it's just like a romance movie with a
I wish it
monster.
was a horror movie.
Yeah, like it's not supposed to like scare you, you know, right? But yeah, and the fact that he can't bring up like a clear example, like the thing is that like I mean, I think we already fucking know this. Like being vague about it is like very helpful, you know. Um
Yeah.
and he can't like he can't bring up the concept of a like a left wing horror movie because he's not consumed enough to like know what it is. He does bring up the fucking like Winnie the Pooh like a blood and honey movie, and he says that this is like the left like deconstructing like children's innocence and whatnot. And it's like, what's like left wing about like Winnie the about this fucking movie, dude? Like, what's the fuck is like I mean, maybe it's like left wing to like put things in the public domain, but like, what are they like for? Like, are you really like looking at like fucking like this like Winnie the Pooh horror film and looking at Adventure Time and seeing like, oh, these promote like the same values, and it's like what, dude? Like, I want to like see like Isaac's young. I mean, like this is why it's probably more important we get this guy on the podcast, because I want to see like his take on like stuff like the Friday the 13th movies, right? Does he think those express what's the good, the true, and the beautiful? You know, because like it's like, oh, it.
Well, certainly not Freddy himself, but it's
Yeah, no,
possible.
he might be more of a Jason Voorhees fan. Who knows, right? And I mean, I'm sorry, I can only bring up movies and shows. That's the only thing I watch. I try not to have a huge opinion. I don't have a huge opinion on books because I don't fucking read too many of them. You know, right?
There are too many.
There's too many. There's too many of like everything. You know, not gonna fucking lie.
Yeah.
There's just
Like, I keep talking about those Bob's Burgers like shows, but I've only seen one of them. So I
right.
can't really like speak to the quality of them.
Mhm.
That's why the only joke I have is there are too many Bob's Burgers likes.
Mhm. Mhm. There's there's like even like I mean going back to like his article about I said it before, but it's called "We Shall Reclaim Literature with Horror." Right? He talks about he remembers in the early 2010s when the left was desperate to rehabilitate H.P. Lovecraft. Um, I, I'm not fully aware of that era. I know like H.P. Lovecraft is one of those people. Every time you bring up there, be like, yeah, I know he was racist, but like Cthulhu is epic, right? You know?
Cthulhu is epic.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that like I thought was always kind of interesting about H.P. Lovecraft is that he is like this huge reactionary. He's a huge conservative and everything. Died alone, died fucking lonely and whatnot. You know, um,
Based.
based. But the thing that's really like interesting is that like a lot of like you know oppressed people, minorities, like trans people, they could like read like his work and like, you know, relate to like the sense of isolation, you know, right? That's like a feeling a lot of
Yeah.
people fucking feel, you know. And and maybe that's why there was like an attempt to kind of rehabilitate because like, oh, he's giving me like feelings that are kind of like valid, you know. But I'm like, I mean the ideas like presented could be like could the ideas you get from it, what you pull from it, when you feel are like valid. You don't have to go into this whole effort to be like the people I'm consuming are like morally good. You know, I feel like Isaac is kind of interested in that he's only consuming stuff from morally like good people, but like it shouldn't like you know whatever if it's good it's good you know and the you know the reason why a lot of people don't consume a lot of right wing stuff is because a lot of it's not fucking good you know and I think that's what like make Isaac like different. I think he's like actually talented and like I mean if I had to say anything to him it's like dude you might be too talented to give a fuck about the culture war. Like talented people don't give a fuck about that, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, only untalented motherfuckers do, you know. Only the people who make like the cringe ass like right wing like a fucking Family Guy give a fuck about all that, you know. The rest of like his article stuff, it's like he talks a lot about kind of like you know I've said it before like the state of things, how it is like financial, how everyone's like you know like struggling like financially. He talks about like you know like people's uninterest in like wanting to pay for new streaming services because like you know like their grocery bill has gone up, you know. And like it's funny because these are all things that like lefties like complain about too. Is like things like lefties like you know focus in on too, you know. And I think I don't know like maybe that's not something he wants to see too much reflective in the media. You know, maybe he wants like more inspirational stuff, and that's like fine too, you know. But like, I mean, wouldn't that be evidence evident that these lefties aren't fucking demons if they're also complaining about all the things you're complaining about, you know, because at the same time, his thing might be that, like, oh, because the demons, they just repeat back the things they hear regular people say. Like, yeah, but, like, isn't that just easy? That's an easy thing to say, you know. It's an easy thing to say that
that is pretty easy.
It's so easy to think leftists are demons. Life is a lot easier for me that leftists are demons. Or maybe like your economic standing, wherever you are, like financially, are things you need to be worried about more. So, like, in order to, like, not be stressed about, like, the personhood of people you don't like, it's easier to perceive them as demons, you know. Like, it's a convenient crutch, you know. And, like, I think I would say all of this is coming, like, really in really fucking, like, good faith, you know, with the things he's saying. Like, I mean, I've like overlooked a lot of his, like, little complaints about, like, random like buzzword shit that he, like, talks about. You could probably tell that I sound really fucking tired, but this guy is just I don't know, I think he has it in him to kind of, like, be a little bit more self-reflective about the things he, like, gives a shit about. I have no problem, because he talks about, like, we need to make the right-wing Warhammer, you know. Warhammer was one of those, like, the last things that, like, lefties could, like, poison, you know. Right? And it's like so dumb, because, like, Warhammer, like everything else, has this, like, appeal that could, like, you don't need to have a political standing to, like, enjoy, you know. Right?
Yeah, something like that would transcend that sort of thing.
Right, exactly. And, like, it's funny how, like, he's interested in making works that don't, like, don't get poisoned by lefties, you know. And the thing is that, like, I really like his story, like Giga Hero, and I think, you know what, I think it's like I think it's time to talk about it, to be honest, you know.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So before, like, I talk about Giga Heroes, there's like a description that he added to the fucking first chapter of the story, right? And
like a postscript, or
like,
just like
explaining where he's coming from with, like, this story, like why he started writing this, you know.
Oh.
Right. And I think I'll read it, and then I'll tell you, like, because I read the whole thing. I'm up to date. The last chapter was chapter 17, which was uploaded on March 16th. And I read this whole thing because I was very enthralled with this story. But let me read his little, like, opener, like his introduction to, like, this story, Giga Heroes. So, okay. So a dream told me to start a superhero story. What may surprise you is I don't really like superheroes, or at least I don't like Hollywood superheroes. I find them tiresome and boring and hopelessly out of touch. Possibly what initially prompted my subconscious was the woke fascination with the genre. I wanted to write a piece tearing them a new one. This began as a proof of concept and quickly evolved into my second major project for Substack. Giga Heroes is an ongoing story spanning 3 different perspectives. It is set in a post-apocalyptic America, now reformed into a new nation called the Democratic Union. The emergence of superpowers threatens the already collapsing world order, and in a panic, politicians ordered abnormals to be hunted down ruthlessly. What exists now is a totalitarian state that desperately doing whatever it can to hold on to power. Superheroes are both loved and reviled, and different factions are warring for power in the ruins of desiccated cities. Meanwhile, regular people scrap together whatever they can in the ruins of the old world. I hope you enjoy, right? So that's, like, his intro, right? So this story, Giga Heroes, is his, like, here's my, like, take that, wokes, right? Like, this is his answer to, like, woke, like, fucking, like superheroes. And I think in the last article he wrote, where he talks about, like, the Mr. Bertram show, he promotes his, like, he promotes the story Giga Heroes, and he reiterates the premise to basically the premise behind the story was a world where the woke won, reducing all the West to the same third world ruin.
Oh.
And it's funny. It's funny that he like says that, because like if you actually read the story and didn't know that's where he's coming from, you would have landed at a completely like different thing, because like the story is, like he said, it's each chapter is, we're following three characters, and each chapter rotates between the three characters and their POV, right? Because they're all like reacting to kind of like the same events, right? Like this is kind of like it's post-apocalyptic, but like not too much. It's kind of like, it's not like Fallout where it's like a reset, but it's more like the dropping the bombs didn't fully reset the world. They're still like cities, but the kind of like the structure, the government has like a new name now and everything, you know, and people still live in these cities, and it's still like mass media. If anything, it's kind of like it's kind of like The Boys meets Fallout, or no, it's kind of like The Boys meets Cyberpunk. It's kind of more of an accurate description of the story, right? Because he is like he's like, you know, deconstructing he's like deconstructing like, you know, the superhero like tropes that like, you know, he's aware of, and that's like nothing like new. I do get the perception from like his previous article that he doesn't like the idea of deconstructions, right? So I wouldn't be surprised that he thinks that by deconstructing the superhero concept that he's like attacking the woke, right? Because like the woke love deconstructing all right wing ideas. So like he's like, "Ha, take that, woke! I'm deconstructing superheroes," which is funny because the greatest superhero deconstruction was written by a lefty, you know, fucking Watchman Alan Moore, you know. So it's nothing like it's like nothing fucking new that he's like doing here. But I think he is kind of like it. What I think is very kind of interesting is that he like portrays like three different people in different kind of like social economic classes, and how they're all kind of like fucked in different degrees, you know, right? Because we follow like a kid who has like superpowers, and how he is but like a mass marketing piece, and like selling to people the idea that he's like an actual like superhero is just like a normal thing. Like they're not really doing the heavy lifting or anything, you know. The other guy is like a criminal who has like superpowers. He's just trying to get by, you know, and he, as long as he gets his own, fuck everybody else, you know. And the third guy is like this homeless guy who gets like basically like a fucking super soldier serum, and he becomes like the most powerful motherfucker in the city, right? And it's all very kind of like it's funny that like, you know, he perceives like, because there's like commentary on like the welfare state here, and it's not like your typical like these fucking homeless people are leeches on society or whatnot. He's not like saying that. Like he's like, you know, he's giving them a perspective. He's like, you know, it's empathetic the way he like portrays like kind of homeless people, right? And it's kind of, it's interesting because it's like, dude, like this, how is this like, you're basically showing like, oh, here's how like capitalism keeps like fucking us over in a post-apocalyptic like world. And he might not see it as like that, because he has anything negative about capitalism to him is not a result of capitalism. It's just like the woke, right? And woke is like a convenient villain to blame everything bad on, you know, and not realizing that like all he is really is just complaining, like I said at the beginning, about like neoliberalism. You know, he's complaining about people who like, you know, can be like, you know, socially liberal, fiscally conservative, you know. And those are the kind of the worst kinds of people fucking at all, you know, like who
generally,
in this world, like how does this like benefit like the woke, you know? How is this like, because like he's saying like what he said about fucking like what he said about like woke ideology, and he like lists down like I gotta go back to his, okay, so like he I guess like in his world for Giga Hero, like he mentions like woke is like anti-Christian, and like yeah, there's not too many like Christians in Giga Hero, but the thing is that like um I'm I don't know, it's like oh like Christianity, what is it really like good for? Like, what is it? What's the point of like having kind of religion? Well, like a big thing is kind of like it brings community, right? So, I mean, you could just say that like capitalism like disenfranchises from us from a community. Actually, it's way better for alone because like the capitalists make more money off of people who feel alone, right? Like if lonely people tend to spend the most amount of money because they don't have like money to like spend it with people, they sell you like fulfillment, and that's like that's
Yeah.
like the breaking down of like they sell you like vices or whatnot, or things that keep you antisocial. They make more money off of fucking antisocial people, um fucking oh my god, anti-white. Well, I mean, all the like guys we're following in Giga Hero are like white guys, right? So and they're in a shitty situation, um anti-masculinity in Giga Hero. I mean, I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't really fucking know if how there'd be too much of like anti like masculinity and like Giga Hero. Like there's like I mean, I guess you could say that like there are super powerful, strong like superheroes, but those people have been whipped into being agents of the state, and that's like but he thinks of that like, oh, that's fucking wokeness. Anti-hierarchical. There's still like a hierarchy in like Giga Hero. Like that's another thing too that I don't get about like the woke is like, okay, if they want to like rule everything, there's still a hierarchy, and I don't know if he sees it as like if there's no hierarchy, we'll self-destruct with each other, or like there will always be a hierarchy and the woke is pretending that they don't believe in a hierarchy so they could be at the top of the hierarchy, right? Like, which is probably
Like the hypocrisy of the woke.
yeah, like that's part of like yeah, that's part of like the hypocrisy of the fucking woke, right? But like isn't that just so fucking convenient, that that like that would be like their fucking standing. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I think Giga Hero really kind of like portrays a lot of kind of like fucking like interesting things. I think it's a pretty decent like kind of like, it's not like the like I could kind of tell he's not too into like superheroes with this like deconstruction. But like it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need that big of a fucking focus on fucking superheroes, because I think it's more about like a commentary about the world they live in than like the concept of superheroes,
Yeah.
And I think it's like really good. I think if Isaac Young gets with like gets I think there's one thing I don't really like Isaac Young doing is this constant use of like AI art, and
I did notice on some of the thumbnails, like, oh, that looks like a AI art.
yeah, he really fucking overdoes it with the AI art, and like I mean I get it if you
There's nothing good, true, or beautiful about AI generated
yeah,
imagery.
exactly. Isn't wouldn't AI art be like wouldn't AI art be anti the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? Because it's not true. It's made by a fucking computer. I don't think I think beautiful or good are like up to interpretation, but it's not made by like a person who could interpret. It's not made by a person who's used as an instrument of like, God. I mean, unless like you just count the AI
Yeah.
prompt as a tool. I mean, if he's coming from that, I mean, I can see how he get around that. But like, I would say that like by you using AI art, you're like, you're rejecting any kind of like right wing artists, who could like help you. You guys could help each other. I know you want your right wing side to like, to work with each other as a community. I mean, fuck, if I were you, Isaac, I would I think the Giga Hero story is very decent enough. It could like just work as a comic. So if you find another right wing artist, you guys could like hash it out, like, you know, make a script, like make a physical fucking comic, I think it's like decent enough. Nothing about it is like strikingly like right wing that you're gonna alienate like lefties. Like me as a lefty, like I fucking like it, you know. And this is what I mean by like, dude, you just drop the culture war shit. You're actually too talented to give. You're too talented to give a fuck about it, to be honest, right? And I think, I think that's like the path I would say Isaac like needs to like go down. I mean, to be honest, like, I think I'm more like I am more interested in like, you know, talking to him. You know, I don't want to like, I'm not interested in fucking debating him about things or nothing. I just want to like, you know, just kind of understand more clearly where he fucking coming from. I don't know if he'd be interested in being on the podcast because he like hates his voice. I saw that in a tweet, right? But
Damn.
yeah. The one big criticism I'll give to Giga Heroes though is that I don't like the name. It's like too generic. Like Giga Heroes could be anything. Giga Heroes sounds like a mobile game. It sounds like
My first thought was early 2000s localized title of an anime you probably weren't going to watch anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Spider Riders.
It's forgettable. Giga Heroes. That's 4 syllables.
Magi Nation.
That's too many syllables. That's too many syllables, Isaac. Like 3 syllables or less, you know. Give us like a way better name. Not Giga Heroes. That's like my major complaint, you know. Actually, my other complaint too about Giga Heroes is like all the implications of romance. You don't, it's not that good. Like there's this whole like thing with like one of the characters who gets very like friendly with another girl character, but there's like no like chemistry. It just feels like it's just happening, you know. I think that's like the part I don't like. You need to like understand like chemistry between characters a lot better, because then I would feel like a lot better about these characters getting together if I feel like they would work really well as like a couple. But instead it's just like, oh, here's a boy character and here's a girl character, and they talk to each other, you know. And it's like, that's not enough.
Conflict develop in Giga Hero.
Okay, well, I think the main crutch really,
like if the woke has taken over everything, who are they fighting? Other woke?
I think, well,
the dark woke.
The way it works in Giga Heroes is that like like I said, our superheroes are more like vehicles for advertisement, right? And they don't really like protect and serve. There's like all these drones that fly around that mostly do all that. So the superheroes are just mostly for show. And the superheroes that have like powers that are like way more stronger for your regular street level stuff usually just go into the military, right? Or they're sent to like the bigger cities. So the city we're at is like not that big. All the cities are like numbered, which I don't know, maybe that's like his commentary about like oh, the woke is strips away all individuality of like a city. Everything has like a number, you know. And it's like, I don't know if too many woke people are interested in changing the name of Pennsylvania or anything, you know. I don't think there's rallying cries for like, oh, New York, the name New York is sexist, we got to change it. I don't think that's like fucking anything woke people give a fuck about.
If I were in charge, I would change Utah, but that's it.
Okay, that being said, our character, he's like disenfranchised with being a superhero. He thinks it's gay and lame, you know. And then a situation arises where he could like defect from his like position as a superhero, and it's a bunch of like different crossroads with the character. The super criminal that we're following is the guy who's like responsible for making that one homeless guy into a super soldier. You know, that's part of a more elaborate plan that we're not aware of. And like it becomes like this kind of like big thing. I think he does very interesting choices. I don't want to like spoil too much. I do want people to read like Giga Heroes. I think it's like it's good. I like it more than his other stories. He has this one sci-fi story. I forget the fucking name of. It's like the Domes of Calrathia, which I read the first chapter and I'm like, this is pretty fucking boring. But I guess because I'm just a sucker for superheroes, I don't know. It's just like, because Isaac talks about like making art that can't be like It can't be like tainted by the woke, you know. But you're like the issues you arise in your art are things that woke people care about, you know. And whatever idea of the woke that you have is just this convenient evil bad guy that works for you, you know. Instead, it's like woke people are more complicated than you're giving them credit, Isaac, you know. And because like they could enjoy stuff like Giga Heroes, I think you got something good going on. A part of me though is like reading through like his articles and like understanding him a little bit better. I feel like the story of Giga Heroes could go in like several like different directions. Really, I can't really exactly pinpoint it, like because I'm kind of interested about like what he perceive, because they haven't revealed who really controls the world in Giga Heroes. Like it's the government,
Right.
obviously, but who's at the top, right? And
Yeah.
if I like, I mean, if I had to guess, like he might do like, because he's mentioned before where like he doesn't like he like ponders about like whether like these like big corporations or these big like production companies, if whether the stuff they do are is the stuff mostly for like for just money, or is there's like a higher like power they answer to that's not money, right? um so and he does believe there's something like higher than money, that like, you know, the like, I mean, he might unironically believe like woke people have like like maybe they're using their telepathy to mind control all the elites and whatnot, you know, right? So with that in mind, that's like what fucking Isaac believes. Maybe the people who rule the world in like Giga Hero are like super strong telepaths, you know.
Mm.
Because I don't know if I could see him realizing that he's doing the thing where like, sure, we have superpowers, but at the end of the day, like uh the people, the capitalists who like make a shitload of money off of like our suffering are way more powerful than anyone's individual superpower, you know. Right, although like, I mean,
That's
like,
the direction he's going in. That would be pretty big.
well, that's like I don't know if that's the direction he's like going in, but like that's like the thing, you know, that I'm like, that like I interpret the work if I had no idea what he was about, you know. That like, that being said, like, you know, he said like, oh, you got to get to know the author before you like see what their intentions are in their work. But like, you know, I'm here, I'm like painting a picture of you, Isaac, and I'm reading your work, and it is a reflection of a lot of things you are saying, but like I don't think it's like this full like reflection of like your right wing beliefs. I think you're espousing stuff that like a lot of like lefties, a lot of woke people could really get into, you know. And that's why I'm saying like this work is like worthwhile, you know. Like I think it's something that like, you know, I think something that people could really fucking dig in, you know. Like this is the part where I'm like, you know, fucking, you know, like gushing about the guy. And yeah, I think it's like worthwhile. Like, you know, I think you know, originally I didn't even, this whole like coverage, I didn't even know if I was gonna read any of his stories, you know, because I didn't think they were gonna be any good. But like, oh, he surprised me. Oh, he's got more like going on. You got something here worthwhile, you know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so like, you know, I recommend like, you don't got to read his fucking articles or whatever. I mean, if you want to, like the Substack will be linked down there. But I think the Giga here is like worthwhile, you know. I like it, at least I think it's good. Maybe everyone like reads it and like thinks like, oh, this actually sucks. But no, I think the story's like worthwhile. You know.
That'll be my adult homework for this week, getting into Giga Hero.
Right. So anyway, so okay, so Isaac, if you're interested on getting the podcast, I would love to talk to you, and let's talk. Let's talk about like where like what can you, because like fuck being right wing, fuck being left wing, whatever. I'm kind of interested in seeing where like you would want your career to go into, because like I'll say this, if I had my complaints about the good, the true, and the beautiful, but if that belief is what's making you write stories as good as Giga Hero, go ahead, fucking keep believing in it, dude. Who gives a
Oh
fuck?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If that works for you, if that works for fucking you, Isaac, fine, fuck it. I just like want to, I want to fucking just get to fucking know you better. I could read all the articles you write, and I still don't even have a complete fucking picture of you. But that's up to fucking you. Who knows? He might like respond with an article where he just shits on this podcast, where it's like, oh, I didn't fucking listen to it or anything or whatnot. I mean, whatever. We'll see how it fucking goes. But I think finally, I have closed the book on Isaac Young. I think that's.
He does listen to this. I hope he writes about how cool I am.
Maybe you're being a little critical about him.
True.
All right then. Yeah, and with that, Julian, you want to plug your stuff?
Yeah. Visit vqcd.in. That's where I host my stuff and things. If I wrote more articles, that's where they would be.
and I'm Cheesymanfredo, and I have stuff that I want to do, but I don't want to say at this moment because I don't know. I feel a little bit tired. I've fucking just been talking about this guy nonstop. But anyway,
There's more that could be said, but that's why you gotta follow Cheesy's lead, check it out.
Yeah,
form your own opinion.
If I'll stop talking about Isaac Young from here on out. I won't bring him up no more. The only thing I'm interested in is getting him on the podcast. That's the only fucking thing I'm interested in.
Yeah, artist to artist.
Artist to artist. Like, let's fucking
get that engagement.
Politics aside, Isaac, let's talk as artist. All right, but any fucking way. Anyway, yeah, so I'm Cheesymanfredo. This is my main character syndrome. Good night, everybody.
Goodbye.